Tonight's the night. Storrs South, UConn versus Gonzaga. Who you got? You're locked on.
You are Locked On UConn, your daily podcast on the UConn Huskies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On UConn your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Before we dive into today's show, just wanted to take a moment to say thank you. This special Saturday edition, the reason why we're able to do this is because of people like you who just love all this content, right? The podcast has grown so much. We're proud to say we're the only daily podcast covering UConn men's and women's basketball, the basketball capital of the world. Sprinkle in a little football. We did some transfer portal stuff the other day. We're thrilled to bring you this coverage because you deserve it. To show our gratitude, we're giving back to Husky Ticket Project, donating 10% of our revenue to them and sending underprivileged kids to games, whether it's the men's basketball, women's basketball, UConn football, baseball. I think softball is in the mix, soccer in the fall. Doing that, we're also supporting NIL initiatives by making a monthly donation to Bleeding Blue for Good. So if you're enjoying the show, take a moment to subscribe and leave a review wherever you listen. Thanks again for making Locked On UConn your first listen every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Okay, we bring in to the program my partner in crime, Dan Meehan of Exit 68. What's up, buddy? Let me ask you this. We got tonight, we have Gonzaga at Madison Square Garden, a.k.a. Storrs South. We're a 2.5 point underdog right now, unless things change going up to up until game time, up to tip. What's your favorite MSG moment?
Oh, has to be last year's Big East tournament. I went to every game and every session, double it up. It was actually I was out in Los Angeles for the last 12 years. Recently moved back to Connecticut in the last year, so I hadn't been to a Big East tournament in over a decade. So it was really good to see UConn back at the Mecca. There's been some awesome renovations in the last few years. They poured a lot of money into MSG. Cousin of mine sits courtside for the Knicks every once in a while. That place it's on another level. You hear the stories, the fame kind of just oozes out of that place, and it's very real. You walk inside that building, the energy is just electric. So yeah, last year's Big East tournament, all those games, the double tech moment with Patino, the guy in the red jacket, Hurley, seeing that up close last year was probably the seminal moment. And then beat Marquette in the championship game was awesome too. But yeah, the Patino and Hurley double tech probably sticks out as my favorite moment.
Yeah, I wonder if we go back in time. That dude is he the same size as Danny? Are they like toe to toe? Like eye to eye?
Patino?
No. The red shirt guy, the bald guy.
Yeah, the guy in the blazer. I don't know who the hell that guy is, but
I think he's their big NIL donor. I think that's what it is.
Got it. Yeah, probably had eye to eye, 6 feet tall ish.
Just saying, it would be funny if they got in each other's faces because two bald guys, probably a little Irish on both sides, all getting all red. It looked.
I've seen that clip. Funny. I was filming on my phone. I have a video of that, and I zoomed in pretty good, where you can see Hurley just mouthing like, "I want that guy out of here."
Yeah, we saw it on TV too.
Yeah, seeing the clips afterwards on Twitter and TV, it was that was a surreal moment.
That's pretty cool. Well, for me, I think I've talked about this. There's two moments, one in defeat and one in victory. When I was a kid, I think I was 13. I was there for when Danielle Marshall broke the Big East record, had 42 points against St. John's in a quarterfinal game at the Garden. I think it was 93, so I might have been 12. But yeah, dude, that was insane. And that's like old school Madison Square Garden without all the bells and whistles that they have now. So I feel like one of these guys were like, "Do you remember old Yankee Stadium?" But yeah, no, that's what that was. And then the one in defeat, I wasn't there. I was in New Haven, probably after enjoying a pizza that I miss to this day. But I was on State Street at a bar called JP Dempsey's, and I knew the owner. And it was the Syracuse 6 overtime game. And we were like, "Dude, you got to stay open. Like, you can't kick us out." Because I lived across the street. I could have walked up and watched it in my house, but like everyone else was like, "I got to drive somewhere." So we were literally on that bar like the entire time. I don't think it ended till like 2:15 or whatever. It was just wild. It was just that game was insane.
Yeah, I'll always remember where I was in my my off-campus dorm in college watching that 6 OT game. It just, you never forget where you were watching that one. So in person, Big East tournament last year was incredible. And then just as a viewer watching on TV, the Ben Gordon performance back in 03-04, where I think he still has the scoring record in the Big East tournament. He scored like 78 points in 3 games. It's ridiculous. Favorite
Madison Square Gordon.
Yeah, unbelievable. He was just on fire, hitting a little bit of everything. Became a top 10 pick with that performance. So, looking forward to this Gonzaga game.
Well, the reason why I brought up the whole like memories is because even though it's a big game, even though it's Gonzaga, who, by the way, I say Gonzaga because of my accent and because I'm from the Northeast, like everybody. Dude, people in my mentions, it's like it's Gonzaga.
The Zags.
I'm not saying Gonzaga. I'm gonna say how I want to say it. But anyway, my point is, and it's no disrespect. It's just, listen, it is what you're not gonna tell someone from Boston not to say "pak the ka." They just talk that way. Sorry, guys. Anyway, my point is, it doesn't feel like we should be playing them here. I know it's a neutral. I'm so used to playing, but Michigan State here in the Elite Eight, Florida, I don't know. Gonzaga just feels like it's, and I'm probably setting us up for people to talk smack after the game if they beat us, but I don't know. I know they're a really good team, but I want Madison Square Garden to be about either the Big East tournament or like we play Kentucky or Duke or Kansas there. It still just feels like they're still, because they haven't won anything like at a national level, they're still kind of missing that piece to kind of be on our level. Does that make sense? I don't know.
Absolutely. Every time we play Gonzaga on a primetime stage for the last few years, at least, we kind of whoop their butt, right?
Yep.
The 2 years ago, the Drew Timme year, I think that was the one game in that 6-game run in the national tournament where people thought, okay, if UConn's going to slip up, if there's an opponent out there, this might be it. And they steamrolled them. Drew Timme was one of the best players in the country coming into that game, and some people thought that he might be able to break that game up and just go to work. And I think, if I recall correctly, he was in foul trouble early in that game, and they just eliminated him early, and it was a rout. And then, I'm not going to be mad at playing at Storrs South. They were undefeated there last year. Hang a banner. This team's a little different, so you don't. And this Gonzaga team is for real, man. They're coming in this game. We'll do some high-level notes here. Number 8 in the AP rankings, number 4 overall in KenPom. This is the second-rated offensive rating team in the country. UConn's third. They run a lot of the same type of offense. This is constant motion. They've got a Nembhard who's leading the nation in assists per game, 10.7. 6'0" guard that averages 11 assists a game. Like, that's some Trae Young in Atlanta stuff going on. So, 7th in the country in assists per game for Gonzaga. So they move the ball, man. They're 8th in the country in free throw percentage at 81%. They hit their free throws when they get to the line. I think a lot of the personnel lines up between UConn and Gonzaga, just size-wise. Gonzaga's guards up front are small. This is the one game where Hassan Diarra is going to have a size matchup advantage over Nembhard, who's just 6 feet tall. So, these guys, they put it through the hoop, 90 points a game. Talking about 2 of the best offensive teams in the country, so something has to shake out, right?
For sure. We're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to get into what do we want to see from this right from the jump tonight. And then we'll get into the last 2 segments of, positional battles, just kind of to continue what you're talking about where they are, their rankings in KenPom. Evan Mia has them number 1 on his site in advanced metrics. But there's still some holes, and we're going to talk about that coming up after the break. There's nothing like being courtside for any live basketball game. The energy of the crowd, the sound of the sneakers squeaking on the court, and the thrill of seeing your favorite players up close. It's an experience you can't replicate. I mean, think about it. I'm still talking about games I saw in 1993 and 1996. Like, they just never leave your thought process. And I know this season Husky fans can't wait to watch the Splash Brothers that we have on our team with Alex Caravan and Solo Ball hit a bunch of threes. But there's the thing that if you can't go to a game or you're worried about tickets, use Game Time. You don't have to offer tickets to anything, or you can go to something that isn't sports related. They have concerts, comedy, theater, and so much more. With their new Game Time Picks feature, it's easier than ever to find incredible deals on seats without sifting through endless options like you're scrolling through Netflix. Listen, not only are deals that I've gotten for friends the best they can possibly do on a third-party site, but there's all-in pricing, so you don't have to have any surprise fees. If you find a better price, Game Time will reimburse you up to 110% of the difference. So why wait? Take the guesswork out of buying tickets. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. That's code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it, guys? It's game time. Our old friends at Home Field. Listen, fans, are you ready to take your Husky pride to the next level? Look no further than Home Field Apparel. Our gear is not just college merch. It's premium comfort combined with vintage-inspired designs that tell a unique story of your very own UConn Huskies. Or maybe you like another team. Maybe it's for your wife and she went to Syracuse. Either way, get her some good gear. Whether you're repping the blue and white at the game or laughing and lounging at home, Home Field has you covered. And here's the full court press. Use promo code UConn24 at checkout for 15% off your first order. So Husky fans, what are you waiting for? Head to homefieldapparel.com and gear up with the most comfortable UConn apparel around. All right, we're back on Locked On UConn with my boy Dan Meehan of Exit 68. All right, Dan. So a couple things. You started to kind of talk about the high level of where Gonzaga is. Number 4 in Ken Palm, number 2 offensive rating, 19th in defensive rating. So that means they're pretty elite on both sides, more so on the offensive side. They destroyed Baylor this year. But look, there are holes. This is a team that they got beat by West Virginia, who's not a particularly strong team. They are a physical team. They're bigger than Gonzaga, and I think that's a big part of why they were able to neutralize them. They also lost to Kentucky after having a 19-point lead, and those are their 2 losses. If you talk about, let's just talk about the team that beat them in West Virginia. West Virginia has, they have a decent resume so far. We'll see what happens when they play Houston and some of the other Big 12 teams that are tough this year, but they beat their only test in Gonzaga, but they also got beat by Louisville. And Louisville barely just beat my friend's UTEP squad. And although UTEP is a really good mid-major, they have no business being down 1 against Louisville at home. So I think there's holes and there's ways to beat Gonzaga. I think Gonzaga is going to be a team that thrives on transition, creating turnovers, and momentum. The Baylor game is a perfect example. You don't beat a team by 40 points by not getting stops and then scoring and getting those, 10-0 runs, the kill shots that Evan Mia has. And I think that's one of the reasons why he has them number 1 in his rankings, because the advanced metrics show that if this team gets out in front, they can blow your doors off. So what do you want to see from UConn that's going to prevent Gonzaga from getting off to the style of play and in the fast-paced, helter-skelter, everything works through Andrew Nembhard, getting him his 10-11 assists a game? Hold on, you're muted. That's my bad.
Nolan Hickman and Ryan Nembhard are matchup-wise, I think, good for UConn. This is going to be one of the only games that UConn plays where their guards are bigger than the opposing guards. We need to use that to our advantage. The Gonzaga goes as Nembhard and Hickman go, almost 11 assists a game. If you can somehow neutralize some of the flow and what Ryan Nembhard does for the Gonzaga team through Hassan Diarra, being physical against Nembhard. This guy's 165 pounds. He's literally like Trae Young. You can move him around. Hassan Diarra is going to need to be in his shirt. We're coming off this Texas matchup where Hassan Diarra played 30-plus minutes against a really tough 6'6" Trey Johnson. And he was up for, Trey ends up having a good game, but he made him work for it. Yep. You have to use Hassan Diarra. This is what he does best. Get in the shirt of a smaller offensive player and try to at least slow them down. Almost, I think, out of every game that Gonzaga's played, they've scored north of 90 points. You got to try to slow them down. This can't be you want to almost make it more so your pace. I think UConn's a decent transition team, but we've seen some sloppy play out of UConn throwing the ball around. on plays where they've had some runouts, so UConn can get out, but can they finish some of those plays like they have in the last few years? Time will tell. I think you want to slow some of the transition play down and just make this a little bit more of a half court game. I think positionally, Gonzaga matches up well size-wise against UConn, but they don't block a whole lot of shots. Gonzaga averages less than 3 shots a game, and UConn is one of the top leaders in the nation in blocks. So you got to try to use some of that stuff to your advantage. And I think we've had a week off now. There is going to be a definitive game plan, and I think you're going to see it early.
No, I agree. I want to see them. What I want to see early is, if you remember the 2 games last year against Creighton, Creighton beat one of the best teams to ever play college basketball last year because for one game they played undisciplined basketball, and it started when Donovan got into foul trouble. He went to the bench, and then all of a sudden it was Stephen Ashworth, similar size to Nembhard, moving them around, and guys just predictably would try to help a little bit too much, wide open threes. And even though this team isn't particularly as good a shooting team as Creighton is, because they only shoot at about 33%, there are guys who have not shot it well this year that I feel like are due. And if they get open shots, you're going to watch this team score a lot of points against us if we do not stay at home. If Nembhard finishes at the rim, or he finishes with paint touches, or we block shots because he gets a little too into deep water, that's what I want to see. I do not want to see the Nembhard show being little baby Steve Nash running around the hoop and then finding open guys because we're getting our hands stuck in the cookie jar because we're trying to help too much. I saw a little bit too much of that last night on the women's, or nights ago in the women's game, with a short guard who is very capable and who UConn made look like she was the greatest player of all time because they allowed 8 open threes. And guess what? Notre Dame hit 7 of them. So if
that's been this team's Achilles heel all year. I think UConn's played well against some of these teams, and especially in Maui, but these teams are just shooting the lights out. Some of that is a byproduct of getting open looks, no question, and you got to close some things off there. But some teams are shooting well against UConn. I think some of that is just luck. Some of it is a byproduct of not playing good defense. But
and I agree with you. But
keep things at the perimeter. You can't let these guys get in and move the ball within the paint because that's where you're going to get hurt.
Totally agree. I think the biggest issue I have is because there's a couple of guys that I feel like before we're going to go to the next break and then talk specifically about Nembhard. The issue I have is we can't let Ryan Nembhard do what he does and have either Graham Ike or Braden Huff or Ben Gregg or Nolan Hickman. You can't have 2 or 3 guys go off. You can have Trey Johnson and from Texas give you 25, but you can't also have Kalume give you 15 points too. Like it's got to be one or the other. So if it's really just about isoing and letting Graham Ike go one-on-one a la the Zach E game where you're just not letting other people score, I'm cool with that. Like, so I want to see what the strategy is for Hurley and folks. Which are they going to do? Is it going to be about hedging a lot on Nembhard and kind of getting him out of his rhythm? Is it going to be physicaling him, toughing him up, roughing him up because he's only 165 pounds, like you said? Or is it just going to be about, playing everything straight up and just kind of seeing if we can not allow a bunch of 3-point shots, even though they're not like a 40-point shooting team? You know what's going to happen if they get open. I mean, come on. I think every UConn fan has watched this year, to your point. Like, I don't think anyone thinks Memphis is going to shoot like that ever again, or Colorado, or Dayton. So who's to say the 34% 3-point shooting team Gonzaga doesn't, shoot 55% on tonight? So it's really just about, do we stay at home or do we play a little bit more aggressive and gamble a little more? I am more partial to staying at home and kind of because those are like, to Dan's point, that's bulletproof basketball. If you allow tough twos and they go in, cool, but you're not allowing open threes.
I agree. I think if you keep this a half-court ball game, it's more in UConn's favor. If you can slow the game down more so in the second half, where you can go to, given that we're not potentially in foul trouble, if you can slow the game down and go to a Terrace Reed and get some of those looks on offense. And I don't think you want this game to be a run-out type game in transition where both teams are shooting a bunch of threes. That's where UConn's been bad this year defensively, is Gonzaga scores 90 points a game. That's obviously what they do well. They get out and run, and they shoot a lot of threes. Even if they're not, it's similar to the Celtics. Even if they're shooting 35%, if the math is mathing and they're getting up a certain number of shots and they're just shooting just above this some sort of baseline, 34, 35, 36%, they don't have to shoot 43% to win a ball game. If they're shooting enough of them and it's a high volume scoring game, I think that plays more into the favor of Gonzaga than it does us. We shot the ball okay in probably half our games this year from three, but other nights it's been a little cold. We're susceptible to a rough night shooting more so this year than we have in years past, and I think that's where we can slip up.
Yeah, to your point before we go to the break, and we're going to talk about the point guard battle, and then who we think on our side is going to be stepping up. You saw my my video I put out about Aiden, so you know who I'm looking forward to. But first game of the year, Gonzaga shot 41.9% from three, but they took 31 shots against Baylor from the 3-point of their 71. So you're right, man. That's around what they shoot, about 32 threes a game. And right now they're shooting it at a 33.7% clip. But like you said, who cares if you make 12 of them and you're still getting some good twos here and there and some easy paint touches, then that's where they can really kind of dismantle you and beat you. So I'm looking forward to seeing how UConn handles that. When we come back from the break, I want to hear Dan's kind of sleepers, who he thinks maybe could make an impact today. And as we anticipate this Gonzaga UConn battle at MSG. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, we're back on Locked On UConn with your host, Mark Snetto, and my partner in crime, Dan Meehan. Special Saturday edition, getting you ready for tonight's battle against the Zags. All right, we've talked about positions. We've talked about where this Gonzaga team ranks offensively. We know they're good. They're top 10 in the country. They're #1 in Evan Mia. They're #4 in Ken Palm. So all the advanced metrics, they're a metrics darling, right? Who do you think that's under the radar that could be a potential for a big game tonight for UConn?
Samson Johnson.
Okay.
I think personnel-wise, these teams match up size-wise pretty good. But I think this team they have size down low, but they don't block a whole lot of shots. If you can we talked about the positional matchup at the guard position. This is going to be one of the only games all year where UConn with a 6'1", 6'2" Hassan Diarra is going to be bigger than the opposing guard. If Hassan Diarra can penetrate and get past Nembhard and their other guards and find that lob play that's been there the last few games. It wasn't in the beginning of the season, and Early made some remarks on that not being there, not finding Samson.
Sure.
If we can find Samson early, get some dribble penetration past some of these smaller guards that Gonzaga has, and find some of those lobs to Samson or Terrace, whoever happens to be in the game, if they can get that presence down low, especially in a half-court game where they're slowing down tempo and making Gonzaga play more of a UConn tempoed game, I think that's where we can find some holes in the Gonzaga armor and do some damage.
I agree with you. My next one is a familiar face, and I won't say Aiden because I think that's obvious. And I've talked about it the last couple of days with some folks that have jumped in from the Gonzaga world because they know him so well. Is Jalen Storrs. He had a phenomenal game in last year's Big East final. He is no stranger to Madison Square Garden, and he seems to like the bright lights. I think he made 3 straight threes in that game. Yep. I'm not even looking for him to score, a crap ton of points. What I'm looking is how he handles coming into the game if they need him, right? If he's the first guy off the bench, is he facilitating? Is he being aggressive? depending on the way Gonzaga guards. I also feel like too we have a big advantage on the wings if they play well with him and Liam. So and Alex. So I think utilizing his size against maybe a smaller player and his ability to get to the hoop if needed, but also kind of his interior passing. Like he's hit Sampson and Terrace for some phenomenal high-low action. So
he's looked really good at the free, like just around the free throw line, getting
that high-low.
Penetration. He's looked really comfortable the last like 2, 3, 4 games.
I think he's found a role. I think that's the thing. Is like it's hard to know what was expected of him, right? When Dan says we're expecting him to make a leap, it's like, okay, is it scoring? Is it passing? Is it rebounding? So I think he's found that his niche right now is I come in and I set the tone by grabbing offensive rebounds, hitting a shot if I'm open, not being afraid to shoot a three, but also getting my big guys involved with when I have the ball at the free throw line, dumping it down to them if there's an opening, but not forcing it. Like he really has a great feel for the game, and I think that's what we're seeing right now.
I think his comfortableness has also come with just having more confidence. I think coming into the season, talk about that leap that we were expecting, but there was also talk about a big time sophomore leap through Jaden Ross.
Right.
I think his shooting hasn't been where they expected it to be, and I think he's lost some minutes because of that. I still expect him to mature throughout the season, and he's going to get plenty of minutes to do so. But I think with some of the shooting woes that Jaden's have had, it's given Stewie a little bit some more minutes to show what he can do, and he's looked more comfortable. I think he's carving himself out to be probably that first wing off the bench, if not, having a starting role going forward. But I think he's kind of carved out a definitive role as the first big 6'7", 6'8" wing coming off the bench over Jaden Ross. And I think that'll kind of be the case going forward too.
Right now, Alex Caravan and Solo Ball are the only two teammates who are shooting above 45% from three.
Wow.
And which is insane. I'm trying to get Solo's exact stats, but Alex is shooting 48% from three right now. And hold on. I think Solo's
if anyone's bored,
46.
I did an awesome thread on Twitter yesterday. I'm just going to go over some of these Alex Caravan stats. Please. Okay, folks, this guy's a legend. Enjoy it while you got him, because you're not going to see this guy again. You want to talk about ratings, darlings? This dude, you want to talk? So you said both of them are the only teammates shooting 45%. Last year, at one point, Cam Spencer and Alex Caravan were the only two guys in America. Never mind being on the same team. They were the only two guys in America with 50, 40, 90 shooting splits. Both of them were averaging, for majority of the season, 50, 40, 90. Caravan ends the season as the only guy in America shooting 50, 40, 90. Rating site Bart Torvik began tracking in 2008. Alex Caravan is the highest offensive rating player of anyone in the UConn basketball program since 2008, while having the 6th lowest usage rate of any of those players since 2008.
Right.
Essentially, when he touches the ball, magic happens every single time.
Yep.
Yeah, or just something good happens. The team scored. Every UConn player since 2008, Caravan has the 4th highest effective field goal percentage behind Donovan Clingan, Amita Brima, and Hashim Tabit, all 3 of which were 7-footers who only got their points at the rim. This one is my favorite. Of every single college basketball player, there are thousands of them. Since 2008, Alex Caravan is ranked 20th in offensive rating. Among those players in the top 20, only 2 of them have won a national championship. Alex Caravan, who has 2, and Anthony Davis, a legendary college basketball player.
Yep.
So
pretty good NBA player too.
Alex Caravan stands in the all-time kind of lineage of just an offensive rating machine, efficient.
Absolutely. Awesome. I have to give some props to Haas too, and I think he's going to ball out tonight too, because look, he started slow, and I think part of it is the transition of, is he starting? Is Aiden starting? So now that there's been some pretty defined roles of, look, Haas is the guy, and he's going to have to be the guy for the rest of the year. You may get Ahmad Noel, getting some minutes later as time goes on. But Haas is averaging almost 6 assists a game. Had a career high 11 assists against Texas. He's pumped his steals up to half of a steal a game more. He's at 1.2. He's almost at 8 points a game. So 8 points and almost 6 assists. I'll take that all day. I said he's an all Big East selection if he's 12 and 8. And there's still time for that because this guy is rising and ascending in a good way. And it's only going to get better against a competition like Nembhard, who's going to push him because, dude, guys are competitive. He's going to look across at this guy and be like, man, this guy's not better than me. You know that. I mean, the guy's Queens guy. He's going to be in New York. Give me a break. Also, I watched Hassan Diarra in a game where UConn won by 30 points last year. I know, albeit with a better team, outplay Tyler Kolek, who is the Big East Player of the Year, allegedly. And, who's now playing, I think he's in the G League or he's playing for the Knicks. Yep. Either way, Hassan Diarra is capable. And so let's put some respect on his name. And unafraid. He's not shooting 100% great this year. He's at 25% three, shot at 35% clip last year. I don't love him shooting the last second shots, but I will not be I actually don't dislike it because I have my man in the arena sign that's up against this wall right here. That's what he reminds me of. He doesn't care. He doesn't care that I come on a podcast and say he shouldn't do it, or there's 50 comments that say he wants the ball. Good. Listen, if when he makes a big shot this year, just remember this conversation right here is that dude is a warrior, and I'm excited for tonight. I think he's going to dominate.
Yeah, I think it's going to be, we're at Storrs South. This is essentially a home game for UConn. I think it'll be a UConn heavy crowd, but Gonzaga, there'll be some fans out there. So I don't think Gonzaga's team per se will be intimidated by the environment, but UConn, we'll see. If UConn can get out and get some of that crowd energy going, I think that will play heavily in their favor. I think it's pretty clear just off of on paper how we want this game to play out. I think it's a Hassan Diarra game. Cut the head off the snake and you win the game. If they can somehow slow Nembhard, if he ends up with 10 plus assists, Gonzaga probably wins the game. But there's not one other player on Gonzaga's team that averages even more than 2 assists a game. They go as he goes. This is a Hassan Diarra game. Even if Hassan doesn't play well, I think the size difference between their guards, they're smaller. This could allow a guy like Aiden Mahaney, like you said, to be able to get his shot off and do some things on the offensive end that will give UConn an advantage in this one.
There's something about when you see a team that you're familiar with, that you've had success against, even if this Gonzaga team is different, but there's a lot of the same players that he faced last year. And that St. Mary's team, that's a rivalry game for them.
I think Hurley's gonna want to give Aiden a couple moments in this game.
Oh, he's definitely gonna want to
against his old conference.
Absolutely,
so
bro.
People look
without a doubt. I put that out there. It's a little. It's not as apropos as I wanted it to be. But if you don't know it and you want to go to my Twitter, it's on at Marks and OCBB. It's the scene in Major League where he's like, "Give me Vaughn," and the catcher's like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, I know he hasn't had a lot of success against these guys. He actually has had a lot of success against Gonzaga.
I got a hunch this guy's due.
I got a hunch, but this guy's due." And I do, but that's the part that I feel like resonates with UConn fans is that this guy is due. And he started it with the Baylor. They didn't really need him against Texas. He played a little bit, but that team was rolling. And that also is another bad matchup for him. Big guards, athletic. They're trying to, be physical. I think Dan is going to pick his spots with Aiden this year, and I think that's
they've had a whole week off to game plan. We've seen it in Maui. If they're not able to practice, they're not going to play as well. If you give UConn the best scouting team in the nation, these guys put players in the right spots to succeed. If you have a week off to kind of game plan against a familiar foe with a lot of the same personnel rolling over into this year from last, and Aiden Mahaney, who knows that personnel better than anybody, I think he's going to put him in some advantageous spots. He's got the size advantage over a few of these guards. So this just could be one of the few games, in the year where Aiden could shine.
Absolutely. Well, listen, go enjoy the game tonight. I really appreciate you guys jumping in for a special Saturday edition. If you like the show, make sure you subscribe. If you don't know about Exit 68, go check that out. It's exit68.com and get some good swag on Dan's website. Got a Storrs collection that I think you should definitely check out. Hey, I hope they win tonight. I'm not going to put a prediction out there because
loud.
If you're there,
UConn Husky Nation. Let's go.
If you're there, definitely get after it. This has been another episode of Locked On UConn. Stay locked in, stay connected. Make sure you're loud at Storrs South. Go Huskies.